Courtesy of Umar bin Abdul Aziz rahmatullahi alayhi. One night a guest came to Umar bin Abdul Aziz. When Umar bin Abdul Aziz was writing something after the Isha prayer, that guest was present beside him. That guest was present beside him. At that time when the lamp was about to go out, the guest said, O Amirul Muminin, shall I fix the lamp? Umar ibn Abdul Aziz said, it is inhuman to employ a guest. The guest asked, so I called the slave. Umar ibn Abdul Aziz said, no, the slave has just fallen asleep. Then he got up and poured oil on the lamp. The guest said, Amirul Muminin, why have you filled the oil yourself? Umar ibn Abdul Aziz said, I was Umar when I went to the lamp. When I came back, I was still Umar. My dignity has not been decreased, and the humble person is the most beloved and best to Allah. Humility of Hazrat Umar ibn Khattab radhiyallahu anhu. Narrated from Qais ibn Abi Hazim. He said that when Umar ibn al-Khattab radhiyallahu anhu went to Syria, the scholars and leaders were presented there. He was told, ride this horse, people will see you. He said, surely you think of me as the source of power, whereas the source of power is there. He pointed to the sky with his hand. Then he said, leave the path. According to another narration, Hazrat Umar radhiyallahu anhu rode and worked in camel by turn with his slave. According that when he would ride the camel, then the slave would go up to 1 farsakh, about 3 miles, with the reins of the camel. Then he would go down and the slave would go up. And Umar radhiyallahu anhu used to walk up to 1 farsakh with the reins of the camel. As they approached Syria, it was the slave's turn to ascend. So the slave ascended and Umar radhiyallahu anhu started walking with the reins of the camel. On the way, when there was a water body, Umar radhiyallahu anhu grabbed the shoes on his left armpit and went down into the water with the reins of the camel. In this way they reached Syria by passing Path. Then the governor of Syria, Abu Ubaidah ibn Zarrah radhiyallahu anhu, came out and said, O Amirul Muminin, the leading people of Syria will come out to greet you, so it is not suitable to see you in such a situation. Umar radhiyallahu anhu said, surely Allah has honored us with Islam, so I don't care what people say. Courtesy of Salman Farsi radhiyallahu anhu. Hazrat Salman Farsi radhiyallahu anhu was then the governor of Medina. One of the leading men of Medina was waiting for a laborer to buy some goods. Meanwhile, Salman Farsi radhiyallahu anhu passed by him. The man thought him a laborer and said, come here and pick up the burden. Salman Farsi radhiyallahu anhu lifted the burden. When he met the people on the way, they were surprised and said, Wallah, mercy on Amirul Muminin. Give us the burden, we will carry it. Ignoring everyone's request, he continued to move forward. Then the man was ashamed and began to apologize, said, Amirul Muminin, I did not recognize you. Salman Farsi radhiyallahu anhu said, there is no problem. And the man was very ashamed and promised that he would never call any porter to carry his burden again. Courtesy of Ali radhiyallahu anhu and Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu. Narrated Abu Abdullah ibn Abu Zafar radhiyallahu anhu. Hazrat Ali radhiyallahu anhu went to the market and bought 2 clothes for 6 dirhams. Then he said to his servant, O Aswad, choose the dress you like. Then the slave chose the good one and took it. And Ali radhiyallahu anhu put on another dress and saw his sleeves are extra long. So he brought scissors and cut them short with his own hands and gave the khutbah on Friday wearing that dress. We were looking at his cutting sleeves then. Amirul Mu'minin Umar ibn Khattab radhiyallahu anhu sent Abu Hurairah radhiyallahu anhu to appoint as the governor of Bahrain. He rode on a donkey and entered Bahrain saying, leave the way for the Amir, leave the way for Amir. The other companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, were also very humble. They have not an atom amount of pride, so they were very dearer to Allah, to the people, and to the angels. The incident of humility of the Prophet, peace be upon him. It is narrated from the Prophet, peace be upon him, that one day he was in the house of Hazrat Aisha radiallahu anha. In front of him was a plate of meat. He was eating meat on sitting with elevated his knees. Then a distraught woman came. She used to talk harshly with men and women. Seeing the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "Look, look, the man is sitting like a slave." Then the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "Yes, I am a slave. Sit like a slave, eat like a slave." He said to the woman, "Eat." The woman said, "I will not eat unless you feed me." The Prophet, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, prepared to feed her with his own hands. The woman said, "No, I will not eat unless you put it in my mouth." The Prophet, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, had a piece of hard meat on his mouth. He took it out and gave it to the woman. As soon as the woman chewed it, she fainted with shame. It is narrated that this woman could no longer look at any man due to shame, and never revealed any indecent behavior from her. A few hadiths about arrogance and modesty. Hazrat Hasan radiallahu anhu narrated from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he said, "I have been given all the keys of the world, and I have been given full freedom to be a slave prophet or a king prophet." Then Gabriel pointed out and said, "Be humble and be a servant of Allah." I then choose to be a slave prophet. And so I have been given, on the day of resurrection, I will be the first to be raised from the grave, and I am the first to intercede. Muslim, Abu Dawud, Musnad Ahmad. Hazrat Abdullah ibn Masud radiallahu anhu said that whoever is humble in the fear of Allah, Allah will give him a high status on the day of resurrection. And whoever become arrogant to think himself greater, Allah will humiliate him on the day of resurrection. Qatada radiallahu anhu said, "We have been told that the Prophet, peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, used to say that a person who leaves the world free from three faults will enter paradise. One, pride; two, betrayal; and three, indebtedness." Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah, Musnad Ahmad, Darimi. To get new episodes, click subscribe button.